Who's Brett McBeth? Oh, Brett, you're the adult. Troop 163 out of St. Rita's, chartered by the Lions Club. You're here tonight with, this is great, you're here with four of the scouts?
There's one getting a water on the car, 5.
Okay. And is this for a Boy Scouts? Merit.
They're working on their citizenship in the community merit badge, and one of the requirements is coming to a town meeting.
Awesome. And Brett, we've met before, I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
Yeah. And who was the other father in the room?
Ed Cerrone.
Ed, how you doing?
Good. I'm another assistant leader.
It's awesome. I mean, we need to get this out of the schedule. We get more Boy Scout troops in anyway. Karen, are you ready? Okay. And the April 20th Webster Town Board meeting called to order. Let's do the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dolly, can you do the roll call, please?
Councilman Flaherty.
Here.
Councilman Abbott.
Here.
Councilwoman Dalby. Present. Councilman Cahill.
Here.
Councilwoman Wynn. Here. County Attorney Genesi.
Present.
I also want to just announce, now that we're on camera and all that, that Troop 163 Boy Scouts out of St. Rita's is here tonight with 5 of their Boy Scouts who are here for a merit badge. Is that correct, Charlie?
Yes.
You're the Boy
Yeah,
Scout.
well, it's a new one. What is it, citizenship and ambition with community and community?
And I think this is the second time in a row, John, that we've had Boy Scouts in, not this troop, but I think it's great. And we need to figure out if we get more of the Boy Scouts in for some of their merit badges, because and just like we said a couple weeks ago, I'm sorry to say that you're probably not going to see a lot of controversial government tonight, young men. All right, but you might. We'll see what happens. The night's young, right? But our first item up that was on the agenda was a presentation in memory of Charlie Stiles. And actually, at the family's request, at Charlie's family's request, we're going to delay this memorial presentation until probably later in May or early June. And John, I think you, of anybody, because you're his neighbor, you learned a lot from him, but you want to say a couple words? I know we're not doing it tonight, but go ahead.
No, we'll wait till May. Charlie was a friend and a neighbor, and he gave a heck of a lot to this community, and you know, he's sorely missed, and his family is obviously mourning heavily at this time. So,
And I think we said at the last board meeting when we announced this, is that, you know, Charlie did some things at the end of his life that kind of proved that's the greatest generation.
without a doubt,
How old was Charlie when he passed?
it's in the 80s.
No, I think it was 87.
Right.
Oh, I shouldn't. Sorry.
So he was a friend and a mentor, and he really gave a lot to the community, serving on the school board. He was school board president for a while too.
Well, we will defer to the family, and we'll have something later in May or early June. With that being said, the next item open, or is to be open to the floor. Each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes from the podium, and either Judge Coratori and his mother are taking the podium, or they're leaving. Darn it, Dave, I thought we would get some stand-up comedy tonight. No? Okay.
I'll save it.
Hal and Ben, is this when you'd like to?
I'd love to.
That would be great. Hal Harris and Ben, I hope I did, Ben Wisniewski,
What does that mean? Close enough.
close enough.
It's not Buffalo.
They kind of preemptively told me that they wanted to take the podium tonight, just to get an update on the town's purchase of approximately 28 acres on Herman Road. So I'll hand it the time to them.
Thank you, Supervisor Flaherty. So I think you all know Al Harris next to me, so he doesn't need an introduction. But I think most of you don't really know me. So I'll talk a little bit about myself in a second. First off, the reason I'm here tonight is primarily to thank the board for supporting me, Hal, and many other people in the community as we have been successful in obtaining a grant from the state to create the 28.7 acre Herman Road Forever Wild Forest, which is being conserved by Gary E. and Judith E. Wood, who are the owners. This new community forest will be located at 760 Herman Road, which is just north of Wild Mallard Trail. And tonight, I want to provide the board with an update on where we've been and where we are, and more importantly, talk about what needs to happen next in order to get this property acquired. So I guess before I jump into the details of that, a quick bit about me. I recently moved to Webster, I guess not recently now, back in 2018, but I'm not new to Webster. I graduated from high school here in 2001. Then I went away for school in the Navy and law school, ultimately came back here. One of the big things that drew me back here, in addition to having family to help with young children, is the wonderful amount of green space and public parkland that we have in this community. When I was here growing up, I spent a lot of time in the woods. I started running cross country in middle school, all the way up to the end of high school. And we didn't have the Gosnell Preserve, the Whiting Preserve back then. We did have Webster Park, and we did have Bojack Trail. And they were a real integral part of my childhood. And I've always thought of them fondly, wherever I've been in the world. So shortly after moving back with my family, I started thinking about ways that I could try to help this community conserve even more of the remaining green space we have in town. So I ended up meeting a lot of great people along the way. Supervisor Flaherty is probably the most important as the town representative here. We helped lead a working group comprised of other local citizens, including Hal, and Friends of Webster Trails, and Diana Davis. And we engaged on a pretty lengthy process where we tried to identify green space in the town by talking to landowners to try to find out where are the places in town that actually have a prospect of being preserved. Ultimately, we found out many people didn't want to do anything now, but it was useful because we found out that a lot of people might want to do something later, and it gave us a short list of properties to kind of check back in on when we had opportunities that would present themselves. So fast forward now to 2022 in the spring. Around that time, I became aware of a grant opportunity through the State Department of Environmental Conservation. I was just basically texted by an attorney friend. And that grant was called the 2022 Community Forest Conservation Grant Program, Round 1, big name. Basically what the grant was doing, it was offering $1 million total dollars to municipalities or nonprofits interested in purchasing existing forest land to preserve as forever wild forest. So a key component of this grant is that once the nonprofit or the town purchased the land, it had to be made a community forest, which means two things. One, it's conserved forever as green space, it's always a forest. And two, it needs to be open to the public because it's a community forest. So really it's going to be used as parkland. So with knowledge of this funding in hand, Supervisor Flaherty went back to one of the properties we identified, which is the 28.7 acre parcel on Herman Road. Now that parcel is owned by Mr. Gary Wood, who is the former owner of Webster Plastics. He purchased that land in the 70s with the intent to build a family home there. They never did that, which is unfortunate for them, but it's fortunate for us today, because that land was basically vacant for the last 50 years, and it's allowed existing forest to expand and fill the entire parcel. And there's now some really fine old growth woods on that property. But it's not just high quality because of the conservation value, it's also high quality from a public parks perspective. And that's because this parcel connects directly with the existing Whiting Preserve. And not just any part of the preserve, what I consider to be one of the nicest parts, which is the old growth beech and hemlock forest in the southwestern corner. So the portion of this 28.7 acre parcel, which connects to Whiting, is actually very close to the Pink Trail, if anyone's familiar with that. What this is going to do is it's going to allow access from the south of Whiting through this new park into Whiting Road. Currently, there's really only 2 parking lots for the Whiting Preserve. You have the Whiting Road lot to the east, you have the Pellet Road lot to the west. Once the town has this new parkland, there will also be a southern parking lot for the new Gary Wood Community Forest, which would be a 3rd parking place. So it creates connectivity to the existing parkland, creates additional parking, 6 to 8 lot space, and it's also got great conservation value. So we really identified this as an ideal candidate for this grant opportunity. So fortunately, with the deadline approaching pretty quickly in April 2022, the supervisor and the Woods were able to come to an agreement that the town should pursue this grant, and ultimately, if it receives it, purchase the land for fair market value. The one caveat and the one problem that arose is that this grant only covers 90% of the whole deal. It's a matching grant. The town has to provide 10. Fortunately, another member of the community stepped up to fill that gap. Mrs. Mary Dombovi, who lives near this parkland in Wild Mallard, has generously donated $30,000 to the town to basically cover the town's matching portion. And her name should be familiar because she previously donated more than $30,000 to the town to purchase 5 acres of parkland, which is next to the Unger Preserve, the Hojack Trail. So big thank you to Mary Dombovi, who's made both of these donations in memory of her late husband, Mike Johnson. So with everything in place, we submitted the application. It was a heavy lift, but it got done, and we waited. And then I think everyone was really pleasantly surprised when we were one of only 4 towns in the entire state to get an award. The other 3 towns were the town of Brookhaven in Long Island, the town of Lewiston in Niagara County, and the town of Whitestone in Oneida County. Webster received $270,000 of the $1 million for this 28.7 acre parcel. So this was excellent news all around. We had our award, and the next steps are to try and meet all the steps that need to be completed before we can actually buy the property. So the first step, which is already completed, is the supervisor and the seller have been able to come down to a final price for the property, which is $285,000. That price is consistent with the third-party appraisal that was performed for the application, which was $287,000. So I think it's a fair representation of market value. The DEC has also approved that appraisal. Since that time, I've also been working with the town attorney, the town engineer, and the town finance officer and others to try and meet the rest of the conditions that we have to meet prior to closing of the DEC grant. So the real reason I'm here tonight is to talk about what's left there, because these are the things that we need to get done in order to hopefully close on this in the next couple of months or so. All right, so there were 6 primary conditions, pre-closing conditions the DEC has given us. The first 2 are done, which is great. The first was to create a forest management plan. This is a document which basically takes inventory of what's there and puts forth a 30-year plan on how we're going to maintain it, who's going to build the trails, how it's going to be used by the public, what the general rules are. I put that together with the help of a forester who was hired to help us put together the initial application. And that's been approved, submitted to, and approved by the DEC. The second thing we needed was an appraisal. That's done. That was done as part of the application. It's paid for, and the DEC has approved it. So 2 of the 6 are good. The next thing, the third thing, I'm not sure if it's done yet, and the town attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, but we are going to have to do title search, commitment, and insurance, which is kind of a basic part of the land sale. And the DEC wants proof of all that before closing. The next thing we need done is a phase 1 environmental report, which is basically a report of the environmental condition of the property. And working with the town engineer on that. We have a quote from Labella Engineering, which is an international firm with a local office in Rochester. It quoted $1,600 to prepare the report. We do have a contract that's ready for review and signature. Once it's executed, they think they'll be done in about 3 weeks. The next, and to be clear, I don't anticipate any problems with that report. I'm not aware of any toxic waste on that site. If anyone else is, I guess we'll see.
And I just want to make sure that, are you almost done?
Can I take the 10 with the two of us? Is that okay?
Well, we already said you could, so you're at 10 minutes now.
Okay, I'll wrap
Which
it up
is
real
the
quick.
time to do it, okay.
Thank you.
The next thing we need is a survey, which we have quotes for, and the DEC wants the survey map attached to the deed, and they want to see it before closing. The last thing is the deed language needs to be hammered out and approved by the DEC. I've submitted deed language to the DEC to review. Once I get back their thoughts, I gotta talk to the town attorney and the seller about it. There's very specific language they want, including a schedule, which includes a notice, which we have to finish, and I'll talk more to the town attorney about that. So those are the things we need to get done before closing, from the DEC's perspective. None of them are hard, most of them are done by contractors. I don't think it'll be difficult. There's also two things I believe the town needs to do. You know, this is really up to the town, but I'll throw them out there anyway. I believe you're gonna have to do a quick secret review for this project because you're purchasing more than 25 acres, so you can't label it type 2. I think you can dispose of that with just a short EAF and an easy negative declaration of environmental significance because you're building a park. But you should do it right to make sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. And then obviously we need a resolution to actually approve the acquisition. But I think other than that, that's the path forward. Any questions?
No. Well, no. No questions because, yeah, the 5 minutes open to the floor doesn't really portend that we ask questions. But I will say this, and thank you, Ben, and Hal, who, you know.
Ben a big hand because he's really driven this process.
And Hal, I'm glad you said that because number one, it's the first time in my 3 years that somebody gave me some advance notice that, hey, can we come and do the 5 minutes open to the floor to give an update on this? Ben and I talked to him, I said, that's awesome. And we kind of preemptively said, you might get 10 minutes between you and Hal. You took them. That's great. I will say this, Ben referenced the supervisor and myself in this a couple of times. He's the guy that made this happen. Ben made this happen. Because really, and it fed into what we're doing right now with the grant program that we're doing. People said to me, you'll never get this $285,000, this $300,000. Ben wrote a grant proposal and we got it. And that kind of made me think that, wait a minute, you know, we should look at these things a little closer. Your passion toward it, thank you. You kind of spurred on us to look at grants a different way in this town. I'm really excited. I think this will probably close, Charlie, before the end of the second quarter business year.
I'm hoping to, yeah.
And for everything that Ben already said, it's connectivity to our other trails and stuff. It's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Dolly, as usual, you are Janie on the spot, not Johnny on the spot. You submitted, I've reviewed the minutes that you did for the April 6th meeting. I make a motion that we approve those minutes.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilwoman Contaldi? Aye. Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
John, you were bills this week, right?
Yes, I was. I did review the bills and I found no issues, and I would move that we pay the bills.
Second. Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Contaldi? Aye. Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye. And I reviewed the prepaid warrants as submitted by Paul Adams, Director of Finance, and I make a motion to approve those.
Second. Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Contaldi? Aye. Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
And I also have reviewed the purchase orders as submitted by Paul Adams, Director of Finance, and make a motion to approve those.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Contaldi? Aye. Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye.
Okay, before we move on to the next one, layman terms, if 5 Boy Scouts in the room understand what that means. What we just did on the last 3 things is what your mom and dad do each month to figure out, should we pay this bill, should we pay that bill? that essentially what it is that? Okay. Hopefully that resonates with the boys. Next one. I know Josh and Charlie traded some stuff today, but I think you're, as the town attorney, satisfied with what Josh had said. Josh, any comments on this next one?
Yeah, it's somewhat of a housekeeping item. In order for municipalities to remain eligible for disaster mitigation grants and recovery funding in the event of a natural disaster, FEMA requires that we update our hazard mitigation plan every 5 years. So the county spearheaded the effort along with all of the towns and villages. We participated, myself, Andrew, the fire marshal, and Mary, participated in a variety of work sessions with the county's consultant, and we identified several critical sites in town, infrastructure, etc., and developed strategies to protect them in the event of a natural disaster, all kinds of natural disasters actually, anything from snowstorms, earthquakes, landslides, flooding, etc. So in order for the county to update and officially adopt the plan and submit it to FEMA, each individual municipality has to pass its own resolution. So I do have a copy. Our section is 38 pages long. I'd be happy to provide it to anybody if they're interested. But yes, this was last done in 2017, so we've hit the 5-year mark, and it's time to adopt an updated plan.
Thank you. I think that's been supplied to the town board digitally and in paper. Any questions, comments for the town board before we move on this? No. I make a motion that we adopt the Monroe County Hazard Mitigation Plan 2023 update. Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilwoman Feldy? Aye. Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Thomas? Aye.
The next two, if there's any questions, I think it will be referred to Mary. Although Pat Stevens, our highway superintendent, has letters of approval on both of these. Pat was not able to join us today because I did see him. He was with his children at Bounce Castle at the revenue time today. So, but I also appreciate that because these next two are regarding license agreements, if the applicant wants to take the podium, and I think Mike here, the first one, by all means do. This is Michael Byrne at 1496 Grand Meadows Way, correct?
That's correct, and I filled out all the paperwork, which there was a lot of, and I sent it off to Josh, and he said that you all would have copies of it, and it includes my survey map, and what I'm asking, I guess I need a license, and so I need to get permission or approval of this agreement from the board in order to move forward, and then after that, I'll get a building permit.
You hit the nail on that, and because you're building I'm sorry,
A vinyl
fence
vinyl
and
fence.
the drainage.
And
Town
yes,
board?
the easement is 10 feet of the property at the rear. That's where it is.
And there's a letter in here that Pat Stevens, our highway superintendent, was fine with it.
Right.
I don't want to drag you through the mud on this, so any questions, comments? Well, then I will make a motion to approve a license agreement 1496 Meadows Way, tax ID number 065.02-3-38 to allow installation of a vinyl privacy fence within the town of Webster drainage easement.
Second. Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Lynn? Aye. Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilman Feldy? Aye. Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
And now, Mike, have you ever met or talked to town attorney Charlie Vanessa?
I assume that we will soon.
Yes.
Thank you for that introduction.
Yes.
I'll be in touch with you.
All right, thank you,
Yeah. They'll navigate you the rest of the time.
appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Did you need anything else?
No?
Good, all right, thank you.
Now, is Chris Kirschmeyer here?
Yeah.
Well, you have a, guess what? Mike did the heavy lifting for you. You now know how it works.
Absolutely.
Um,
I appreciate that, Mike. Thank you. I'm at the exact same situation as Mike, so I just want to thank everybody for the time.
Sure. And Pat Stevens, our highway superintendent, has a supporting letter that the fence and drainage easement of your home is okay. Questions, comments from the board?
I guess my only question would be, you're going to be putting a 5-foot fence?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you going to be seeking a variance for that?
A variance?
Where is the fence going to be placed exactly? Is it going to be placed on the lot line?
No, I'm moving it inside
Okay, so
from the
you're
lot.
going to be in compliance with the code, you're not going to need a variance?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
No
No.
variance required.
No?
No.
Mr. Artuso says no, so that's good enough for me.
I appreciate that, Mr. Artuso.
Well, I make a unless there's any other comments or questions from the board. Make a motion to approve a license agreement at 1859 Halesworth Lane, tax ID number 081-.01-1-76 to allow the installation of a 5-foot black chain link fence within the town of Webster drainage easement.
Second. Supervisor Flaherty.
Aye.
Councilwoman Caldwell. Aye. Councilman Abbott.
Aye.
Councilman Cahill.
Right.
Councilwoman Wynn. Aye.
Hey,
You'll be here.
you'll be talking to Charlie?
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Charlie, am I right to assume that the next item probably should be tabled to May 4th? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And we don't have any supporting document, and that's fine.
Right, I
We had
was going to
said
say, I
that,
don't see anything.
you know, we still, so I'm gonna make a motion to table, resolution 7 tonight to approve a lease extension or a new lease between Webster Volunteer Fire Department, Inc. as the landlord in the town of Webster, as the tenant in a section of Ebner Drive. I'm gonna make a motion to table.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty.
Aye.
Councilman Abbott.
Aye.
Councilwoman Caldwell. Aye. Councilman Cahill.
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn. Aye.
All right, Mary, I think you are the person that we're gonna be leaning at on the next two.
The first one's pretty simple. There is one elevator in town. It's in the town hall. And the agreement with a previous vendor had been in place for over 5 years. I think it was 7 or 8 years. So just for due diligence, we went and got pricing from some other companies, and we are going to award it with Bison Elevator Service Incorporated.
Any comments, questions from the board?
I would make a motion that we
Thank you.
approve the contract and allow the supervisor to sign it with the elevator service agreement for preventative maintenance.
Second. Councilman Abbott.
Aye.
Councilwoman Caldwell. Aye. Councilman Cahill.
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn. Aye. Supervisor Flaherty.
Aye. And Mary, the next one, I know was added kind of late, so we're gonna really lean on your explanation on this one.
Sure. So, I was notified, I think by a contractor, that Webster was identified as a potential recipient for the U.S. Department of Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant. So this is a program designed to assist states, local governments, and tribes in implementing strategies to reduce energy use, reduce fossil fuel emissions, and improve energy efficiency. There were over 2,700 states, territories, local governments, and tribes that were eligible. It appears that we qualified because our population is over 35,000 people. In the 2022 fiscal year, they made $550 million available. And then if you utilize the grant money, it has a 2-year timeline to complete your project. So I looked at the program a little bit, and there's quite a few uses that you can use it for. What stood out to me was building energy audits and retrofits. The town hall HVAC is quite a unique compilation of residential air handling units, rooftop units, and furnaces, so I thought that might be a good use for this funding. There's also transportation infrastructure that it could fund, so bike lanes or pedestrian walkways. And then another thing that stood out was material conservation, so composting, so potentially getting reimbursed for some of the activities that highway's already doing with leaf composting. So we're definitely not at the point where I have a document together for what exactly we want to go for, because it could fund up to $76,520. But this is just a resolution to allow the supervisor to sign a notice of intent, which is the first step, and then we could proceed to identify projects that we can utilize that funding for. And just to note that there were quite a few other nearby municipalities that were also identified in the program, so Henrietta, Penfield, Harrington, City of Rochester, Monroe County, and some other local ones were also listed online when I was looking. So there's a whole spreadsheet of different entities throughout the United States that were identified for this program.
And where I can't make this motion, obviously, but, you know, it's a letter of intent. Does the town board, have any questions, comments prior to this?
No, I think it's great that someone made you aware of it, followed up on it. We need to look at all of the opportunities that we can, so thank you, Mary.
And I will note that our clerk for engineering and community development, Maria, went to Buffalo in March and sat through 2 days of grant training, so she's kind of spearheading this for us and doing the deep dive into what we can do and then helping us apply. So thank you, Maria, for helping us and utilizing the skills she came back with. So that'll be a good first try with putting her in that kind of position. So trying to broaden our staff's horizons and help us with the workload. So
Fantastic.
Can I mean, assuming that we pass this tonight, logically in the next 1, 3, 4 months, the next thing that would hit the town board is like what we're applying for, the specificity, some of the options you gave. Whether workshop first about what we want to talk about applying for, but ultimately that would be the next steps.
correct. I think that's sometime in July that step would be due.
Gotcha.
I would make a motion to submit and allow the supervisor to sign a notice of intent for the U.S. Department of Energy's Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant, which could provide funding of up to $76,520.
Second.
Councilman Rizaldi?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye. Charlie, I think this is your purview, the next one.
Each of the board members should have my memorandum attached to, and the calculations and the data for the estimates to be refunded. Thank you, Dolly, and thank you, Assessor Homer. As you know, we get approximately 24 article tax certiorari Article 7 proceedings every year, and they can entail litigation. Ultimately, they are litigation. They're brought to the state Supreme Court. Issue is always joined. It involves discovery. It involves oftentimes the hiring of appraisers, which cost each of the parties money, and obviously we go to trial. It's further expense. We try to resolve them as best we can. We don't give anything away, and we try to bring up every possible issue we can prior to the litigation. In this case, there's been quite a bit of discussion between the attorneys, which is myself, the petitioner's attorney, who formerly had my position in her town of residence, and therefore is familiar with the process, and the school district attorney. The school district is also a party. They're actually formally called intervener. So they intervene in these proceedings because, or in these proceedings because the amounts involved are much greater than ours by roughly 5 times. That's 500% of ours. Therefore, we've had numerous discussions and discovery in this particular proceeding, which involves the little strip mall on the north side of Ridge, 1170 down, or 1070 down. It's furniture, furniture. No, Rochester, Linoleum and Flooring. That building, there are some. I believe there's 4 different businesses located there. The property's been sold a couple of times in the last 6 years, which actually is part of the reason why we have proposed a settlement, because we have some numbers. In any event, after these discussions and after discussions with our assessor, we've agreed to reduce the assessment going back to 2019 by varying amounts, as you can see in the resolution. And that will incur refunds of taxes. Now, the benefit of doing it this way are multiple. One of them is if we go to court and a judge awards it, the judge will always award interest and often penalties as well. That's number one. Number two, in this case, we did not obtain appraisals, so we did not have we're incurring the cost of the appraisals. And number three, this particular proceeding, unlike most of them, the number for the last roll year is challengeable should we go through revaluation. Oftentimes, that is not the case. It is usually locked in for 3 years. That is by law, unless waived by the petitioner. In this case, the petitioner has effectively waived it. So, we believe, all of us believe that this is a very good settlement. As of Monday morning, the amount that we were going to seek to have refunded was going to be roughly $3,000 more than this. The school district attorney and myself contacted the petitioner's attorney and reworked out the arrangement, reworked out the estimates. They gave the numbers to Dolly and Donna. They recalculated, so we're about $3,000 for the town tax, less than we would have been on Monday. So we've got that down a little bit. The total that we're seeking is $11,415.61. I know there's any questions.
So, does the school district have to do their own resolution for
Yes.
their $50,000?
I think theirs is going to be almost $60,000.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And Charlie, I mean, you and I have had a lot of discussions on this. Lawsuits are a loser. All the attorneys. $11,450 for the town to settle this is, to me, that makes a lot of sense. Especially since now they've sold it and they kind of got a market value.
Right, we've had 2 sales on this, so we didn't, like I said, we didn't even bother, we did not even choose to go to the appraisal. There is a court order, scheduling order, but this will avoid that.
That's all I got to say.
What's going to happen is if the board approves this, then I will be able to sign the stipulation of settlement. If the school board approves, the school district, they'll be able to sign, and then we will send it to the judge, who will then sign off.
Okay.
Okay?
Oh, Charlie, or not Charlie, Bill or Patty?
I would move that we approve a proposed assessment reduction and estimated tax refund resulting from the settlement of real property tax law, Article 7. in the amount of $11,415.61.
Second.
Councilwoman Kirkcaldy.
Aye.
Councilman Abbott.
Aye.
Councilman Cahill.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lynn.
Aye.
Supervisor Larry.
Aye. Well, Brayton, do you want to take the podium? Was that your inside voice, Councilman? Well, this is kind of a big deal.
Good evening, the town board. Brayden Connor, Director of Personnel for the town of Webster, to speak on the blue collar CSEA settlement. First, I want to thank the unit members for ratifying the settlement agreement that includes some healthcare savings, and that's never easy. I'd also like to thank the unit president, John Leckinger, and the immediate past president, Adam Bronson, and their negotiating teams for the countless hours of work that they did in negotiation meetings as well as outside negotiation meetings. There were a lot of heavy lift issues here to handle. The town's bargaining team was Paul Adams, Finance Director, Pat Stevens, Highway Superintendent, Art Patron, Deputy Commissioner of Public Works, and yourself, Supervisor Flaherty. And then in my final thank yous, I'd like to thank the board. Some things are worth waiting for, but it is not fun to wait, and there can be opinions shared, and I appreciate your support during this process, and both bargaining teams are very proud of the outcome. So the outcome is more than just wages and health care, which it absolutely is wages and health care, but a couple of things are, we have a completely new career ladder for the blue collar unit, for the highway employees and the sewer employees, and this will put us squarely in conformity with best practices under civil service law, but more important than that, it will make duties and expectations clearer to both management and employees, and I think that'll benefit everybody in the long run. Another thing that we did is we are treating new hires the same way that we treat them when we recruit them. We remove the blackout period. So historically, when we've hired folks, we recruit them and we say, come here, we want you to work here, and then as soon as they get here, we say, but you can't take any vacation, you don't get any sick time, you don't get any bereavement time, and you don't get any holidays until you've been here a certain amount of time. And we've removed that, those provisions for the blue collar unit, so that there's not an inconsistency between our recruiting goals and how we treat them once we hire them. And then the last thing I would point out is the party spent a lot of time around on-call pay. And I won't get into all the details, but essentially we had different practices within the same unit in different departments. And so we spent a lot of time coming up with how to do it that was consistent and fairly applied, as well as fiscally responsible. So on the wages, it's a 4-year contract. The wages start May 1st of this year, and there's no retroactivity to the contract. The healthcare savings, we made healthcare changes that benefit both the employer as well as the employee. We closed out the copay plan and are shifting nearly every employee into the high deductible plan. And so that ends up being a savings for both the employer and the employee when you do that. We're helping with folks making that transition this year, doing some enhanced health savings account payments. And we have an old legacy health reimbursement account arrangement that we're closing out. And I guess the last, there's other details that I go into, but the last thing I would say is that the union and the town worked to reconfigure town holidays to recognize both Martin Luther King Jr.'s Day and Juneteenth without increasing the total number of holidays. So we were able to achieve something that we felt was important, but without causing a lack of productivity for the taxpayer. And those were the comments that I wanted to cover, along with recommending that the town board ratify the agreement and authorize the supervisor to sign.
So great, and I just want to personally thank you and all the parties involved in these negotiations. And to your point that it's sometimes better to delay during these discussions. And as we can see, I'm pretty sure the board will see the fruit. And I like the fact that we're not treating the new hires as we used to. I think that's very important. I think this is fair to all the employees and to the town as a whole. So, once again, I know it was a heavy lift. You spent hours. All the parties involved spent hours on this. Some of the emotions were very high at certain times. So that cooling off period, I think, really helped quite a bit. So, I'm very proud of the work that everyone did to come to this contract. And I think it was a great job by all parties. So, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Jenny? Bill?
No, I reviewed the contract, it's fair, it was done well. I'm a little reluctant to allow someone just hired to be able to take vacation, but, I wasn't there, I didn't do negotiations, so I'll vote for it.
Bill? You come from a different area.
And I would say to allay Councilman Abbott's concerns, they start accumulating vacation monthly now, so we allow them to take vacation, but they only have a little bit to go. So it's not as if we hire them and give them 2 weeks immediately that they could burn the first 2 weeks. There's balances in there.
I'm just old school, that's all.
Like I said, you come from a different area. Okay.
I just want to echo Councilman Cahill's thoughts and thank you for all your hard work and thank all those who were around the table. Both John, Adam, and your negotiating teams. You did a great job, and what I'm really very pleased to see is that this is not just a contract really for the next 4 years, but it is structured so that it goes into the future as far as positions and a lot of the things that you've set up, such as the new hire policy and things like that. So we're not just talking about healthcare or wages. We're looking at making things, I think, fair across the board to everyone.
And I also would say, Paul, since you were at the table, do you have any words to say? Because this was a 9-month.
Yeah, it was a long process, Tom. It was a great team effort on both sides. I'm actually impressed with the blue collar negotiation team.
Yeah.
Thought we had it done once, but with one more trip to the meeting table, we got it done.
Yeah, and Art and Pat are not here tonight to speak about their experience. Oh, geez, Art. Art, you know what?
My wife sent me. I had to get out of the house.
You know what? That goes into the blooper reel, doesn't it? Art, you were there. Any comments?
I would echo Paul and Brayton's comments. Really, his team really did a nice job. I think our team as a whole really were prepared, and it really helped a lot to Brayton and Paul, and impact a lot of this.
And I would say the blue collar team was phenomenal. I mean, once we got past the first couple of meetings, where it's contentious. I mean, it is what it is. But then it was a really good process. And I will say this: thank goodness for the town that Brayton was put in the position to be the talker, if you want to call it, at these things, and not me.
I would echo that.
Thank you, Art. And Paul, I hope you would echo that too.
Thank you.
And I will tell you this, I felt like I got a master's degree. I learned so much through this process. Brayden, you were great. You really were. And don't be looking for a raise, by the way, but you were great. Very impressive, the whole thing, so we'll leave it at that. I can't,
I would make a motion that we approve the ratified CSEA blue collar settlement agreement for 2023 through 2026.
Second.
Councilwoman Conley?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Lynn?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Thank you. And now, I'm gonna pay for this for a long time. The next resolution is Art Patron, Deputy Commissioner, DPW, said was not here tonight. I'm glad you are here tonight. Can you explain the next one?
We can. So Supervisor, this came before the board. This is a resolution to call for a public hearing to extend the sanitary sewer district to include 6 residents on Woodard Road. So this came before the board almost 10 months ago. And because of the annual value cost of this project, it had to go to the state comptroller for approval. That process took, well, almost 10 months and still is not finished due to the delay by the state comptroller and state attorney. We're basically starting this process over. We have a new engineer's estimate. We met with the residents Tuesday night. They voted again for the new cost. And, I would like to thank the board on the residents' behalf, because this was put on today. And these residents, these 6 residents are in dire need of sanitary sewers. Their septic systems are acting on a daily basis. They cannot do their own laundry. So getting this on quick just really speeds up the process. I would like to thank our team in the sewer department, Charlie and Paul, honestly, Donna and Dolly. It's a very big team effort, and we started the application process over, which entails about 1.5 inches thick binder of documents.
Well, we're doing everything on our side, moving along quickly. Let's hope it happens when we send it off.
Correct.
Any questions or comments?
We were doing this in parallel with one of them, the lane that coming back as well.
It will be. We're just finalizing the paperwork. I didn't want to put it on tonight's agenda because I want to make sure everything's 100%. So you will probably see it at the next board meeting.
Thank you.
Well, I make a motion calling for a public hearing to be held on Thursday, May 18, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. to consider an addition to the consolidated sanitary sewer district, specifically the Woodard Road extension, and to be published in the Wednesday, May 3rd edition of the Webster Herald.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilman Cahill? Councilwoman Contaldi? Aye. Councilman Allen?
Aye.
We are down to our last item of the evening, and this is another one that Art will explain. But before you do, I gotta say, it's great to look the fathers of the Boy Scouts. Their poker face is like, oh, this is interesting. The Boy Scouts, this is like watching paint dry, isn't it? You having fun?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're liars. This is not, you know. Thank you. So, you know what I mean? Can you imagine 15, when you were 15, sitting on this film?
That's one for me.
It wasn't a requirement when I was.
That's right, yes, that's it. Anyway, with that being said, Art, can you make this exciting about the last one?
Absolutely can. So, as we've been doing the last few months, and actually the last couple of years, we're continuing to clean out some old equipment and so forth. And I think the last board meeting I was here, and I explained that rather than send this equipment to county auction where it gets no value, we signed an agreement with a company called Auctions International, and all they do is online municipal auctions, and it really gives us a better audience for what we're selling, rather than just sending these as scrap. So these are old pumps and so forth that we're hoping to send to auction, put them up on the website and gain some value for them. The nice thing is we have full control whether we want to actually sell these or not. We see the highest bid, and we can just sell it, or we don't. It's a great thing. I think it costs us $5 or $10 per unit, and there's no shipping. So that's what we're going to try with these. The ISCO sampler is that would be they'll be recycled, but 3 pumps, we're gonna try to get some value out of it.
Any questions or comments?
Nope.
I gotta say, you know what's funny about this, on a layman sort of thing, and I have this argument with my wife and kids. I put stuff in our house on Craigslist, and I say, if it doesn't sell, then I'll throw it. That's essentially what you're saying.
That's really what we're doing. We're going to a more specialized and wider audience with this online auction. And absolutely, if we don't get a good value for it, we'll take it and scrap it and get the scrap value for it.
Right, to get some value, not just throwing it away.
Right.
Yeah. Isco sampler is basically a plastic tub that there's no value to anyway. It's about 20 years old.
Well, then I make a motion to declare the following items for auction or recycling from the sewer department: a Borger pump CL 390 tag number 04004, Peerless effluent pump, a Marathon effluent pump, and Isco sampler tag number 01183.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Catali?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wood?
Aye.
I really have to say, I was looking at their facial expressions, you had them on the edge of their seat.
Did I really?
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Good job.
maybe.
Fantastic.
Maybe you could explain what effluent pump is.
Oh, for God's sake.
What's effluent if you're buying it?
Yeah. And I will say for, usually, we do a round table, and I'm gonna ask, I'd rather bypass the round table tonight because we are making a motion to go into executive session, under section 105, item 1, subcategory, what do you think, Charlie, are we talking?
Well, I think this is probably
D?
E and F.
E and F, okay. So, we're open meetings, boys, we do this, it's on TV, this and that. The town board governance also has the ability to go into a private session to discuss certain topics that probably should not be discussed out in the public, because we're negotiating contracts and things of that nature. Personnel issues that if it was out in the open public would either be embarrassing to personnel or give information away that would hurt our negotiating on contracts and things like that. So that's the best answer, my explanation I can give to it. With that being said, if my motion to go into executive session is seconded and we all approve that, I hate to tell you this, boys, I know you're going to be upset. You got to leave. So that's my motion.
Second.
Do you want to invite him?
Yes, I do want to invite the town attorney, Charlie Genesi, and the town's finance director, Paul Adams, to that, along with the town. Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
And we will be adjourning right at the
That is correct. And so, I know, boys, you're upset because you want another hour of this, but sorry, it's over. And Dolly? Art can go, and I will even let Karen and Jane go. Yeah.
First you have to do, you know.
I come in.
You gotta bring it close in your handsome.
Really appreciate it.
Well, maybe you need a white accent.
That's what I'm saying.
Could be a lot of different colors.